Hello guys, welcome back. My name's Nathan and today I'm going to be discussing Mike Babcock and if the Toronto Maple Leafs should fire him. Now, after the Leafs' very average start to the NHL season, a lot of the blame and criticism has been put on the head coach Mike Babcock, and a lot of Leafs fans right now are almost calling for his head at this point. So when it comes to the whole Toronto situation, does Mike Babcock actually deserve to be fired, and what is the best move for the Toronto Maple Leafs to make? For all my opinions and more, watch till the end to find them all out. Now, the Toronto Maple Leafs so far for the first 11 games sit at a 5-4-2 record, good for 12 points and the 11th place in the standings so far. They're sitting at the most games played in the league, but are not even touching the top 10 in the NHL. And for a team like Toronto that has Stanley Cup aspirations, obviously, this start has been pretty disappointing. From top to bottom, from the players to the management, it hasn't been a good start. And personally, I haven't been impressed. Now, there's a stat regarding the Leafs that kind of blew my mind, and I think it should blow your mind too. Now, the Toronto Maple Leafs record since January 1st in the regular season, both last year and this year, has been 25, 21, and 8. That does not look like a Stanley Cup contender's record, okay? Yes, they had some big slumps in there, sure, and of course we're factoring in the start of this season, which hasn't been all that amazing. But since the start of the new year, since 2019, Toronto's almost flipped a switch, and they've been a pretty mediocre team throughout that. Just looking at the record, not with any of the scoring or anything, with the record they haven't been playing like a playoff team in the year of 2019. We're in October as well. We're late into the year, and that's pretty concerning. And here is where the blame starts to be put on Mike Babcock specifically. Not just the players, but the managerial position. And for a team like Toronto, in any calendar year, with the team that they have, they shouldn't be near a 500 record. With the talent that they have, the players they have, that's pretty unacceptable. Yes, so far this season, you had Travis Dermott, who I think is an underrated, huge part on that Toronto team, and you have John Tavares, who just recently got out to a week-to-week injury with a broken finger. But even without that, being close to a 500 record with this Toronto team is pretty terrible. I don't want to put the blame solely on Mike Babcock, but that record just shows how bad it's been. And even in saying that, I still think Mike Babcock is one of the best coaches in, quite frankly, NHL history. He's done such a good job in the past couple of decades of assembling teams like the Detroit Red Wings and now the Toronto Maple Leafs and putting them in key successful situations. But there's a difference between having a great pedigree, doing a lot in the past, and being a good coach right now in the present, the 2019 present. And right now, when it comes to Toronto's record, how Mike Babcock has had a lot of weird decisions over the past few months, it's a situation that I don't think will be cleared up easily. If you fire him, I think it might hurt the team, and also if you keep him, I think it might hurt the team. I think Toronto's kind of in a lose-lose situation, because while I think Mike Babcock is an amazing coach that can do amazing things, he hasn't proved that with Toronto. And again, some of the in-game stuff that he does, having guys like Auston Matthews get like 0 ice time in Game 7, the little things like that, Mike Babcock has kind of failed to really get the edge over teams like Boston in the past. And when you're a team like Toronto, which is just hell-bent on getting far in the playoffs and winning a Stanley Cup, that's a huge problem. But even without Dermott and even losing John Tavares, you'd still expect this team to be better than how they played so far. With the Toronto Maple Leafs, I didn't expect them to win the Stanley Cup or anything, but I expect them to be better than 5-4-2 to start out the season, and that is a problem. I don't think Toronto will have too much trouble making the playoffs, but those are some spots that they might want to get back. They might just finish in a wild card spot and have a fine season if things don't change the way they should. Now, the reason I'm not going to put all the blame on Mike Babcock because of the season start is because I think a lot of the weaknesses that Toronto had with the roster itself have really shined. I think the offense has been fine. It's been good enough. There's been some great performances, some bad ones. And we saw versus Boston how it was just kind of meh. But the goaltending has been a little bit weaker. I think Freddie Anderson hasn't had an amazing season so far. And when Freddie Anderson isn't on his peak game, you see how bad that defense is and how many chances they give up. And we've seen on that defense how bad it's been. And specifically looking at a guy like Morgan Wylie, who I don't think has had a great season, both offensively or even defensively. That's a guy that Toronto leaned on throughout the regular season and the playoffs. And this year, it's kind of all crumbled on top of him. That's a situation that Toronto, I think, just kind of forced themselves in. Not having the strongest defense has definitely pushed them back so far. I'm not going to come out here in this video and say that I expected the defense for Toronto to be great, but I'm not saying that Mike Babcock had this amazing roster, this amazing defense to work with, and that he somehow failed it, because he really didn't. Besides the forward group and a hot Freddie Anderson, that defense is terrible for the most part, and he really wasn't given that many options. Jake Muzzin sure has risen up to the occasion. You see some different guys on that defense working pretty well, but you still have Cody Ceci on that defense. You still have a guy like that who was pretty much an anchor in all the wrong ways, holding the Toronto Maple Leafs back. And when you have a forward group that, for the past few games, hasn't performed amazingly, you start to see the big weaknesses on Toronto. And that's where I think the blame from Mike Babcock is coming from. There are some little things I think he's done wrong so far this season, but I'm not going to blame him for Toronto's woes, at least not completely. But looking at something that was a huge gripe against Babcock last year, looking at the ice time for Toronto, I don't exactly have too many problems with it. We saw how many problems there were in the Game 7 ice time with guys like Auston Matthews not even giving 20 minutes per game, but for the most part, I'm pretty fond of how he's played the players so far. My only real gripe is that Cody Ceci is third in average ice time, but if you're going to give a guy like Mike Babcock Cody Ceci, he's going to use it, so I don't really fault him for that. But throughout the rest of the roster, I think the ice time is fine. You got Mitch, Marner, Auston Matthews around 19 minutes. You got maybe Kappen, who's playing maybe a little bit too much, but I think Nylander, Janssen, and especially a guy like McKayev with 15 minutes per night. I think everything is fine here. I don't think there's any big mistakes, and you can see throughout the average ice time. There is some games here where players kind of get shafted. Auston Matthews hasn't gotten a ton of ice time for the first few games, but for the most part, I haven't disliked what Mike Babcock has done. I just think he's given a roster that at a point, he can't be too successful with. And I think throughout Toronto's struggles in the first few games of the season, I think it's evident how important Freddie Anderson is to this team, because there's been some performances here and there that have been off. And I don't think we should blame Mike Babcock for that, but I think that's one of the main reasons why Toronto has been sliding so far. Their record isn't terrible, but it could be better, and I think Freddie Anderson hasn't been on top of his game so far, and he usually isn't in October. That start is usually a bad thing for Freddie, and when he isn't going, you see so many holes throughout the Toronto roster that Mike Babcock can't do much with. He can't fix that defense single-handedly. He can't tell Cody Ceci to be good because he's not. Kyle Dubas ascends that roster. Kyle Dubas gives all the orders there, and Mike Babcock is just given what he's given. And at this point, with a defense like that, with a forward group that has a lot of guys kind of disappointing, I don't exactly blame Mike Babcock for Toronto's poor performance. Yes, there is some blame that needs to be put on him, but right now, I don't think he should be fired. And here's the thing, okay? If you're gonna go out just 10 games into the season and fire your head coach, you better have an amazing reason for it. And seeing what Mike Babcock has done this season, I don't see that amazing reason. I don't see the big reason why he should be fired 11 games into the season. If you were gonna fire Mike Babcock, you should have just done it this offseason instead of doing it in mid-October. Maybe just give Mike Babcock a chance this season, let him ride it out, and if he loses in the first round in Game 7 versus Boston again, maybe you think about firing him again. But your chance was this offseason. I think Toronto will keep Mike Babcock. I don't think they'll fire him unless Toronto misses the playoffs or something. But I think Mike Babcock will once again make the playoffs for Toronto. I don't know if they'll get past the first round, but we should at least give him another chance to prove himself, okay? Yes, it hurts he's been outcoached by Boston time after time again. But 11 games into the season, that's just kind of cruel. And I'm going to stick with that opinion because I think for the Toronto Maple Leafs, firing your coach in October, it would definitely be a bold move, but I'm not sure that would be the right move for them. I don't think it would be. Firing your head coach at this point, I think would just be unwise. For me, give Mike Babcock one more year to prove himself. This year, maybe you give him a little bit of next year, who knows, to really prove himself as a guy who can lead the Toronto Maple Leafs to a Stanley Cup potentially. He might not have to make the Stanley Cup final for that to actually happen, but give Mike Babcock a chance, because right now with the roster he has, I think he's doing about the best with the options he's got, which with that defense, the options aren't too many. And as a person who, for some reason, likes the Leafs, I want to see Mike Babcock be successful. I want to see him have one more opportunity, one more shot to prove himself. And I think the Toronto Maple Leafs agree with that. If he loses in the first round, then go ahead, fire him again. Because I think he might deserve it at that point. But if he gets the Toronto Maple Leafs to the point where they can be successful in the playoffs, I think you honestly have to keep him. He's made some bad moves here and there, but he's human. He's an NHL coach. Everybody makes mistakes. And Mike Babcock has sure made his share of them. I don't think he should be fired, at least anytime soon. But of course, with this video, I need to hear y'all's thoughts down those comments down below. So let me know your thoughts on the Mike Babcock situation with the Toronto Maple Leafs. What do you think about Mike Babcock? Do you think he should be fired or no? Debate me. Let me know down those comments down below. But if y'all want some more Grav videos just like this one, y'all should definitely click on this video to watch my opinions on Jets defensive rookie Ville Heinola and why I was very wrong about him. But that'll be it for today, guys. If you guys enjoy, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, boys, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Comment down below your thoughts on Mike Babcock and what you think should happen with him. Share this video also with your friends if you haven't. Grow the Grav Gang, boys, up to 10K subscribers. Let's get her done. I'm Nathan, and I'll see y'all in the next video or stream. Goodbye.